Hi, my name is Kevin, and I'm 17 right now in grade 12, and I'm studying game design at NPC. I came to NPC when I was 4.5, so I'm 17 now, so that'd be around 12.5 years. There were some breaks in the middle, but just generally 12 years around that. Well, NPC is a community, much like any other studio setting, so obviously we get to meet a lot of other people with similar interests, whether they be students, mentors, or even parents looking for the future for their sons or daughters. And in terms of mentors, Mr. An, Andrew, Sabrina, Zhuang Lao Shi, they have all been really good resources when we have questions and inquiries to talk about the direct subject topic itself or things in the industry that we might not know about. Well, I don't really have a dream school. I have a list of schools that I really wanted to go to, and I've gotten offers from multiple of them, so that makes me quite happy. In terms of short-term and long-term academic goals, let's go long-term first. So I feel like any designer can relate to this. I want a certain degree of creative freedom, and obviously if you work for a company or work for clients, that's greatly limited in a way. So in the future, I'd like to eventually be something more akin to like maybe a director or maybe own my own thing and do my own thing where I can choose a general direction based on a larger guideline and pursue that. In terms of short-term goals, it definitely just to be taking all the opportunities that university and post-secondary gives me, like internships, relations with professors, and obviously networking. Those things are all really important to me as they'll inevitably connect to more job opportunities in the industry in the future. So I'm the editor for Vision 2020, and Vision 2020 wasn't some super formal ordeal. It was more just a casual artistic magazine, and I feel like it was a pretty friendly setting, and I overall liked the environment that it brought with it. It really encouraged colloquial and casual discussion, and for an outsider maybe trying to get more insight into what goes into trying to get into various post-secondaries relating to design, I feel like it'd be a useful read. And it's also pretty fun to read sometimes too. Well, I'd say just plan ahead, really think about what you want and whether and why you want it and what you're doing right now to achieve it. So I feel like in high school you should obviously be thinking about university, but I feel like not a lot of people when they go into university are actually thinking about what they want after university, even though that's the whole point of going to university. It's to get a job and further pursue your academic or creative passions. So when you go into university, or in the period before you go to university, make sure to think really hard about what you're going to try to do at university and what you're trying to achieve there, and not that, I'm going to university, everything's just going to be laid out for me. Well, there's a quote by Stan Lee. I don't remember the specific quote, but I'll give you like the rough meaning of it. It's basically, if you genuinely think that you have a good idea, then don't let some idiot talk you out of it. Well, I mean, obviously I'm not obsessed with any single designer or like artist, but Hayao Miyazaki, he's like the creator of a bunch of Ghibli films. He really got me interested into design things, so I would guess that I should say that he's the most influential person in my pursuit of artistic inspirations. Well, when I came in, I actually wanted to do animation with Mr. On, but as I got to understand more and more of the various industries through people like Andrew and Mr. On himself, I realized that I was maybe looking more towards more freedom, and I wanted to do more designing and conceptual things. And entertainment design and game design just seemed like a really good fit for that in terms of world building and overall generalized design. Well, there was a discovery period, like I already mentioned before. I wanted to do animation before, and it was really the biggest thing was trying to understand and getting more information on what the industry looked like. Because just because you enjoy consuming something doesn't necessarily mean you enjoy producing something. So, for example, like if you like listening to music, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll like doing music, and that applies to art as well. So, really, like pinpointing what I really enjoyed in design and pursuing that and identifying that was probably the biggest challenge. Uh, well, it's sort of inherent with my answer, but just do more research and talk with more people. For example, Andrew once brought a few other students and I to swing by his company so we could see his workspace environment. And that really gave us a better idea of what working in this industry looked like. Well, I've started to like and be interested in design since I was very little. Like, I had a passion for drawing since I was very little. Like I said, it came to the studio when I was 4.5. I really started to think about what I wanted to do probably in ninth grade. And from there, there was a discovery period, like I said, maybe a year or so, when I just needed to really get my bearings and understand and identify and differentiate the various professions that I wanted to go into. And then from there, it was just practice, practice, and practice. Obviously, don't just go for quantity, also go for efficiency and quality. But the most important thing for anything, I'd say, is just to practice and do more of it. In my spare time, I play two instruments. I play cello and I play piano, so I like listening to music. I like trying to compose music sometimes, and obviously I like playing music as well, so I spend a good bit of time on those two. Well, I was very unfamiliar with programming, and in one of the portfolio prompts, it was highly suggested that I do a game mock-up, which required programming. So trying to learn programming in a pretty short amount of time was definitely difficult, or amongst the most challenging things. My starting language was C Sharp, which, I mean, it's not like the hardest language by any means, but it's also not the easiest language to start with. Like, most of my friends who actually work in programming suggested Python as a first language, but the software that I used, Unity and Visual Studio, they didn't really do Python, or at least Unity didn't. Well, when I'm under pressure, I feel like it's really important to identify what is making you like stressed out. And most of the time, if I'm stressed out, it's just a very short-term stress. It's either like I have an upcoming presentation or something, or I have a lot of work that I need to do, or I have a upcoming big event. And if it is like an identifiable event or workload, then I feel like the best approach would just be to try to burn through it and do as much work as you can and burn through it. Because I find that when I work on something that stresses me out, it's like directly alleviating my stress from that thing. It's like if I had, like, let's say like 10 homework assignments and that was causing me stress, worth 10 homework assignments, then if I do 3 homework assignments, that means I've alleviated 3 of the sources of my stress. But of course, sometimes you also feel that you can't work very well because you're stressed, and I'd say just take a breather and chill, or even like take a nap or something. And then you get your head clear and then try to figure out a way to alleviate your stress. Well, I mean, you've told me about 3 parts, so 文化课, that part, it's depends on what your schedule looks like at school, but you should definitely try, or at least try to organize your schedule. I know sometimes the school might not allow it, but try to keep your courses more balanced. So, like, let's say in a semester-based school, you don't want to have like 4 heavy academic courses in one semester and just have nothing or like very easy non-academic courses in the other one, because you'd just be overworking yourself in one of the semesters and you'll just be doing nothing in the other semester. The second component of the question, I actually didn't have to do IELTS because I'm Canadian and I had my education in English for high school, so I don't have to do that. I did take the SAT, which was a different story, but that wasn't the question, so I'll just move on.
就是类似雅思或
SAT.
因为你又要准备 SAT 又要准备作品集嘛。
Yeah, SAT and portfolio were sort of very different. SAT, it was really about identifying what I wanted to do in the SAT, because the SAT was a standardized test, and standardized tests typically aren't the greatest measure of like your future goals and long-term skills. So I found that for me, the SAT, the best way to study for the SAT was just to cram like maybe a few weeks before the test and just do very intensive training. Like I think I did like 8 to 10 hours a day of Shwati. It's sort of like Gaokao in China, maybe a few days before that. Obviously, Gaokao takes longer, like over a prolonged period of time, but SAT, I took, I think, 20 days maybe of intensive training, and then I eventually got the results I wanted. A portfolio, obviously, you can't do that. Portfolio is a very slow burner. But just try to take inspiration from things you see in life. Like sometimes you might just be doodling something, or like during your break or something, and if you really like it, then don't just ignore it, go for it. And always be looking around you in real life for sources of inspiration. Well, thank you. It's been a really nice few years, and I've learned a lot of things, and a lot of my views have also changed. So definitely thank you for that.